like this. Relics from the past, whispers from our own history. They tell us not just where we've been, but inform where we're going as a culture too. We have to keep them. The question is how we do that. We restore them and find new uses for them. As dwellings even, places to live in. It's hard to get it right. But one thing's for sure, you have to tread really carefully.
The far-flung southwest corner of England has always been an isolated, more mysterious place. Within the lush landscape of Cornwall, there are scattered pockets of our past, resisting the march of a modern world.
This is one of Blake's original dark satanic mills, isn't it? Wow.
This old flour mill has been left abandoned for almost 60 years, but it was once a critical hub for this rural Cornish community.
Now, these are the mill races. Fed the wheel, I guess. Or wheels, more than one. Holy moly.
There are now plans to convert this listed old hulk into a home.
I mean, this ain't no domestic project, is it? This is an industrial building. Probably never lived in, never designed to be lived in. And probably a building which is going to resist being lived in.
Wait there, Luna.
The two behind this high-risk project
Go on, Luna.
are Lee and Richard. Until recently, they lived in Derbyshire where they ran a small rare plants nursery, and Richard was a part-time maths teacher.
Well, there's no trolley service on this train, is there?
They don't seem like big risk takers.
Good girl, Luna.
But oh, how looks can be deceptive. Because Lee and Richard met 27 years ago, jumping out of an aircraft.
Some of the things that we've done you might consider dangerous. Board attempts.
We don't tend to take the easy option. You've got to push yourself. And if you don't push yourself, you don't know how far you can go.
These former daredevils have now cut the ties with their old lives in Derbyshire and have moved 250 miles away to the wilds of the Cornish coast.
I just love being down here. I think we're so lucky to have a beach like this on the doorstep. Never lived by the sea. This has always been a dream.
Having sold their house to finance this project, they're about to sink everything they've ever worked for and their future happiness into a building on the verge of collapse.
The amount of work that needs to be done, there has to be an element of risk.
Biggest concern is running out of money and being Mrs. Impatient, not quite being ready when I want to move in.
We've never done anything on this scale before.
We're bound to make a few mistakes, but
Hopefully not expensive ones.
You've bitten off a big hunk of building here to work on, haven't you?
it's a big project, but one we're looking forward to.
Have you done this before?
No, complete novices. We just fell in love with it. It was instant. We're on our way home to Derby. I picked up a free newspaper outside an estate agent.
You were supposed to be navigating.
Yes, dear. I opened it up and went, that's it.
What are you hoping to do with it?
Well, it's been here for several hundred years, and it's redundant as a mill, so it's never going to be a mill again. So we're going to make it and convert it into a beautiful home, but obviously try and maintain some of its heritage, and you know, show people that it was a mill. You know, we're not going to rip everything
I
out.
think old buildings like this, you fall in love with them. They often don't repay that.
But she's old and tired and sad, and I think she's crying out for a little bit of help to nudge her into the future.
We can't put off going in any longer, can we?
Come on
Is
in
it
then.
safe?
It depends on your assessment of risk, really.
Hey. Ooh, this is rather nice. I mean, it's old.
It's a big space, isn't it?
Yeah. I like your floor.
Yeah, these were laid down about 100 years ago.
Were they?
And I think it's things like that that, reflect the use that it's had in its past.
Yeah. Do these remain in this place in situ?
Not in this place, because you've got very little head height here. We are going to dig out and go down.
But the plan for these, to use 2 of them to make the dining room table.
I still want to make it look like it's an industrial building.
Yes.
To me, that's quite important.
Looking at these beams, their condition, the fact that they haven't sagged too much or dropped at the end, it's great.
We're going to get them inspected as to what can be saved and reused.
But what's your gut feeling about how great big floor? This is what, a milling floor, presumably?
Yes.
Yeah. What's it going to be?
It's going to be our living room.
Wow.
Lovely space.
So what stays here? So what about the hoppers?
No, so that the hoppers will be removed.
And these posts supporting this beam?
So the big beam's staying in.
We're not disposing of any of the wood that's usable. It will be repurposed.
I suppose my question here is, when you start removing the details, you start to remove the character.
But everything moves forward. It can't be stuck in the past.
We've got to be realistic because it has got to be
A home.
a home.
It's not going to be a mill again.
And there's the rub. How to save every scrap of this precious place, repair it sensitively, and yet convert it to live in comfortably, without trashing it. For just over 400 years, this building was grinding flour and animal feed, and was still working in the 1960s. But for over half a century, it's been left abandoned. Partial collapse has helped damp get into the masonry. The windows and window lintels have rotted out. Lee and Richard's most urgent job will be to tackle the stonework. Take out every inch of damp, rotten mortar made from earth and lime. Rebuild areas of wall near collapse, and restore some structural integrity. Inside, the old timber workings of the mill will need to be carefully treated, as they're still helping to brace the walls. Lee and Richard want to keep them, but will jumble them up as they reorganize the layout. All the slates will need to come off, the trusses underneath carefully rebuilt, and the building re-roofed to make it watertight again. An architect has helped them reconfigure the layout. In the roof there'll be 2 ensuite guest bedrooms. And the second floor below will house their bedroom suite. On the first floor, their open-plan living room will retain some elements of the old mill and give them access to the garden over the rear wheel pit. The ground floor will see the most radical change. Those beautiful millstones get removed to be reused somewhere else, and a new concrete floor installed. A new kitchen and dining room will be lit by 2 new windows, for which they have permission. And ground-mounted solar panels will help power this very 21st century conversion. Lee and Richard clearly have the passion to create something spellbinding here. But they have no experience, not of ancient buildings, not even of building.
You have got your work cut out here, I think, haven't you?
I think so.
How much did you pay for the site?
£135,000.
£235,000 for this. How much is the project going to cost?
£250,000.
I could put my money somewhere slightly sounder than this.
£250,000 is not enough. It's damp. They're also greedy and ungrateful.
You 2 met, falling out of an aircraft, yeah? Which suggests that you are not risk-averse. You are risk enthusiasts.
Now we're risk managers.
Oh, but you are taking a risk here. You are novices.
But there isn't any reward without an element of risk.
No, I know all that. Things that I say. But I'm just trying to look out for you here.
Thank you.
Yeah, we perhaps don't fully appreciate how risky it might seem.
Yeah.
But I think we're confident in...
Overcoming the risk.
Yeah.
Lee and Richard have given themselves a year to resurrect this broken building. But of course, if they move too quickly, they could destroy the very thing they've fallen in love with.
This newel post and this handrail have been polished to a gloss by the action of thousands of hands grabbing hold of it over the centuries it's been here. The magic of the place, that magic lies in details like this, in tens of thousands of them around the place. Remove these, change, adapt, and actually, quite quickly, you begin to chip away at that magic, at that spirit of place. And there's a tremendous poignancy in that, because once this is gone, it's gone forever.
By spring, Lee and Richard have moved into a small holiday let just across the road from their site.
Go on.
Where the scaffold is up and the work of saving this listed local landmark can begin. A quarter of the total budget, £60,000, is being spent on a team of conservation builders who'll repair and rebuild the stonework. They start by removing the old and broken pointing and any hard cement repairs.
Some people will look at this and think, knock it down. Lee and Richard have undertaken quite an extensive amount of work.
This is hard manual labour, but it needs to be judicious so as not to disturb loose and dangerous stonework. Only when these walls are secure can they start on the timber structure inside, which it seems is in far worse shape than anyone thought.
Part of the floor did collapse. One of the big joists just dropped out. In places, the floor really is quite unsafe.
And these ancient timbers seem to be suffering new stresses.
3 days ago, the split in this joist was 1 millimetre. We've now got cracks in it that you can put your hand in.
Every new problem discovered means a new cost.
We're only a short while into the project, and I can see that it is already going to run over the figure that we had.
2 weeks in, Lee is already projecting an overspend of £15,000, and still there is so much that is unknown. Like the condition of the ancient underground mill race that runs from the wheel pit under the road. The only way to know is to get wet.
So we're just going to look for any defects, cracking, missing material.
If there's any damage to this underground tunnel, it could lead to flooding and possibly undermine the building.
It doesn't look like any maintenance has been carried out for many, many years.
Biting nails.
The beam is being split. So the only option for repair would be on the top. Right, so badly cracked beam in there. We can't actually get in, but we can see the first 2 beams are cracked, and the cracking is structurally significant to the structure. Both slate beams need to be replaced.
There wasn't any money in the budget for fixing this problem.
Lee and Richard's ancient Cornish mill is already grinding their wherewithal and resources down. And it's not just their 250 grand budget that's buckling under pressure.
The beam is being split. It is partly collapsed. It can cause a block to the waterway, which means the water can't flow through and can cause a lot of flooding.
Repairs could run into the thousands, so Richard and Lee do the only thing they can afford to.
I'm not overly worried about it. It's been there a long time.
For the moment, they ignore it.
We're all right. And if it falls in, it'll be like your very own sinkhole.
Thanks.
It's a high-risk strategy, but then the stonework is gobbling so much cash, a quarter of all they have. The following month, however, there are results.
It's good to see the old beauty being brought back to life.
Just 3 weeks in, the restoration contractors have found so many areas of serious damage, as well as some temporary remediations made by previous custodians.
I didn't actually touch a single stone in this for fear that the entire section will fall out. It must have been like this for the past 50 years, judging by the moss. But look, it's sitting on the lintel, which almost isn't doing a job at all. And the best thing of all is that somebody's tried to effect a repair previously up here, which is even better. Having an old hinge, and above it, gas pipe. What a fantastic piece of improvisation that is.
There will be no gas pipe lintels in this renovation. 48 new solid oak lintels are now being fitted over the window and door openings.
Are you replacing more than you thought you would?
Yes, we definitely are. So there are a few things that we're hidden, that we are discovering, that we know that we've got to put right.
Presumably you're prepared to sacrifice, the beautiful kitchen and the expensive fixtures and fittings in order to be able to get the building sorted.
The building being sorted is the absolute priority, but there'll be no sacrificial kitchens.
Well, good luck for that. Lee and Richard's 250 grand is ebbing away fast, and they haven't even begun on the decaying interior. A job entrusted to their highly experienced conservation joiner, James.
Good lad.
And his less experienced jobbing assistant, Richard.
Richard is like my helper, my apprentice. He's an extra pair of hands. It's unusual to have a client assisting in this way.
The first task for this crack team is to dismantle the charming ancient staircase.
Yeah, we'll see how he is at the end, you know what I mean? He's learning a lot as he goes. But we've had no problems so far. Right, I suggest you come down now. I wouldn't give him a job yet.
Even my precious newel post isn't safe
It's a nice bit of wood.
from the exuberance of Richard's crowbar.
There we go.
They had hoped to keep 80% of these timbers in situ, but the building hadn't told Lee and Richard the full story.
Even though this beam on the whole may look good and solid, the critical area of it is where it goes into the wall. That's rotted away. You can see it's just turned into dust. So you can't use that.
In the following month, there is at least some good news about the stonework. All the structural repairs have been made, and the restoration contractors have begun repointing the walls with a traditional lime mortar.
Protecting it from sun, wind, rain, you know, everything, all the elements. Yeah, good for another 100 years.
But this careful approach of gentle, slow repair and conservation won't now be replicated inside. Lee and Richard have now decided that almost every single beam and joist will be replaced with new timber.
It's German softwood, apparently. It's come from a local timber yard.
The new, straight and somewhat characterless timber goes in quick. This helps the structure, and the choice of softwood helps the somewhat stressed budget. In a desperate attempt to save even more cash, Lee and Richard have now moved out of the holiday let and into
Lily, come on.
the world's tiniest caravan.
It's a little cramped and cosy.
Luna,
Normally I like accommodation with stars, and the more of them the better.
I've no idea how long they'll call this minute space home. That's up to the mill. A little over 2 months since work began, the roofers are on site to tackle the last big structural element of this building's salvation.
now I'm not sure I'm brave enough to do it. When they said it was coming off in a day, I always thought, no.
Fingers crossed that underneath these slates they don't find another nasty surprise.
Yeah, so it's probably more damage we would have liked. We've got to see how deep it goes.
If these 7 A-frame roof trusses can be salvaged, they'll probably be the only original timbers to survive Richard and Lee's renovation. Oh, goodness me. Bits of building. Bits of building out in the rain. Bits of building that maybe in some cases should have stayed in the building. Thousands of bits that made it what it was. The speed of change on this project brings undesirable impacts for me. All my life I have loved old things, and loved them for their cantankerousness and their wonkiness and their history and the stories they tell and the narratives they weave, and here it's just being ripped apart. I'm not sure what means anything anymore here. And yet, in the roof, Lee and Richard are investing in conservation. They're spending an extra £1,400 on discreet steel reinforcements to save those weakened old trusses.
It is a disappointment to us that we couldn't save more of the original timbers.
I'm just mindful that, here you are, plating the end of some of these long trusses into the walls with some new timber. Downstairs, it's new timber throughout. It's new joists, it's new beams, it's new flooring, it's everything. Tell you what, do you think now, actually, we could have taken this approach, we could have used this?
No.
We could have saved some of that? Surely.
No.
Surely.
We wouldn't have been able to save that timber and guarantee the structure of the building.
The stonework showed just how conservation repair work can be considerate and respectful. Inside, I think there's been too much change that's happened too quickly. Balancing a modest £250,000 budget with the authentic restoration of an old Cornish flour mill has not been easy for Lee and Richard.
Can you hold the window?
I've got the schooner.
They're now fitting 18 new, beautifully made timber windows. It's cost £14,000 to repair and clad the entire roof, and an extra £8,000 in the end to retain the old timber A-frame trusses. Now, after a frantic 6 months, this building is watertight for the first time in 60 years, and the shroud of scaffolding can begin to come down.
I suppose it's like the butterfly coming from the chrysalis, isn't it? Just beautiful. Bloody amazing.
Brilliant, isn't it? Looking good. Over the years, you've just watched it slowly crumble away, and now it's lovely.
A positive reaction from the community. And 3 weeks later, even the hardline conservationists are changing their tune.
Well, how picturesque is that? What a lovely thing. They've really used their judgment with this pointing. They haven't tried to rebuild these walls to make them straight. They're still wonky and wobbly. And it's lovely. It's got loads of personality.
But these restored walls are only a shell. And now all the professional craftsmen have left. The completion of this project rests solely with its inexperienced owners.
You've been by yourselves on your town for how long?
About 3 weeks now, we've been on our own.
Yeah, must have been something of a shocker.
Yeah, I think the first morning you wake up and realise no one's coming to hold your hand. It's like, blimey, what do we do next?
Have you revised your building programme, your schedule?
Schedule, no. Spring to be in and complete. But budget's another thing. Carpentry works took a lot longer than we thought. And also, we've introduced some steelwork into the top floor that we hadn't budgeted for at all.
How much did you think it's getting sort of to this point, roughly?
I mean, we've spent £150,000 at the moment, and I think that I probably have seen that probably about 120.
So you're about £30,000 more than you might have wanted to spend, but then it's the building telling you what it needs, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, we won't have any money left at the end of it. We'll have a lovely home. We won't have any money. This is absolutely everything we've got. Failure isn't an option here. But the end goal is in sight.
But I've thoroughly enjoyed every minute. I wouldn't change a thing.
We'll see how you are in 6 months.
Lee and Richard's budget is now running at £280,000. Within the month, Richard makes a start on the internal stonework, using skills he's picked up from working with and underfloor heating. All jobs that rest in their unpracticed hands.
You have so many jobs. Sometimes you actually don't know where to start.
The first monumental challenge they tackle alone is the millstone floor. These stones need to be exhumed, since they need to dig down to form more height in the dining room.
How are we going to lift them out?
Magic. You know, if we'd got a team of people in here now, you'd probably get this floor out in a day. Whereas it's going to probably take me a week.
Progress moving the stone floors going very, very slow, a lot slower than I anticipated. I think Richard thought that it would be quite simple. They're really, really heavy, and I think that we're going to have to get people in to help us, which, you know, it's another expense that we hadn't budgeted for.
You know, there's no way that's going to move. Not much we can do about it.
It's now 4 weeks since Richard began excavating the ground floor, and the cavalry have been called in to help.
By the looks of it, this one is the main one, the heavy one.
Attaching a block and tackle to a second floor beam means Richard's new timbers are given a real test.
Yes, a very heavy piece of wood. On that side.
The planning conditions for this listed landmark mean that 2 of the millstones have to be retained within the building. They're clearly reluctant to leave their ancient home.
We're all a little bit surprised about the size of this millstone.
It's a bit heavy.
4 men take 4 hours to remove the largest of these granite beasts from the floor.
I was dreading moving them, if I'm being honest. But now they're out, it's, yeah. I think this bit will go quite quickly.
As this project creeps towards winter, Lee and Richard have given themselves just 4 months to complete the interior and escape the dreaded caravan, which has now been moved into the garage to offer a little more protection from the elements.
Life in the caravan. Generally chaotic. Would have been nice to have had a bigger caravan. Hopefully, just a few more months and we'll be in the mill. And I'm never ever staying in a caravan again. Ever.
And Lee isn't the only one feeling confined.
Luna, come here, sweetie. Lily, I can't believe you did that. Oh, you silly bugger.
The dog's very independent.
Lily! Right now!
While Lee manages the schedule and the budget, it's left to Richard boards. It's a welcome relief from digging out the ground floor. Overall, the demands of this building are taking their toll.
Richard is a hard worker, but even I'm quite concerned now at how he looks. He looks very, very tired. I've not seen him this tired.
Winter is beginning to bite. Richard is aching, having removed almost 25 tons of rubble from the ground floor.
I'm absolutely knackered. Just tired. The word I would choose to use would be bollocks.
Yeah, I'd say exhausted, but he has finally got the ground floor lowered. Richard thought that might take 2 weeks, but getting ready for today's concrete pour has taken 2 months.
I'll let the guys do the heavy shuffling. I'll make them a cup of tea in a minute.
All right. Terrific.
But now, this monster of a job is complete. Progress on this project has been so slow. By the new year, Lee's moving in date of March is becoming more uncertain. Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Hi, Kevin. Good to see you again.
And you, how are you?
Fine, thank
Good
you.
to see you. I still can't get used to this idea.
Winter residence.
Yeah, it's our winter retreat.
It's one thing to live in a caravan, quite another to live in a caravan in a box with no views.
It's been quite tedious at times with all the rain, and hopefully it won't have to be there that long.
When's that then?
Well, I
Well-
reckon we're about 3 months late.
So that's June, July time then.
Outside, you can read the narrative history of this building. Inside, however, it's a work of fiction. Mill stands are all outside. Floor is down.
That was an
Floor's down.
exercise, wasn't it?
I bet it was. They look big and chunky, those. New floor, new ceiling, new joists and beams, new walls because you're plastering them all, new windows. I mean, internally, it's going to be a new building.
If you look at some of the posts here, these were original floor joists. The ones we've actually put back into the wall.
Has a floor joist become a post?
Yeah.
Purists will be horrified, but actually when you look at them, they weren't usable.
You know which camp I fit into, don't you? Begins with a P. Purist. There is, of course, one part of this building that is more in line with my conservation stance. The roof. This is all going to be underfloor heating.
Yeah.
You've laid your boards in readiness for it.
Originally, it was meant to be 2 definite bedrooms.
Conserve roof.
I love it. This is one of my
It's the
favourite
best,
places.
it's the best timber in the building by a long way.
I think it's the best timber in the building because it's the old timber. Most of that old timber is now piled up in the garden. Its final purpose, to keep all those new timbers warm. I think that might be a little bit in your post. What do you think? Dear me. Bye-bye. I feel my argument for conservative repair may never find a happy home within these walls. Lee and Richard, weary and worn down, just want to get it finished.
Conservation, lovely idea, but you can't save everything.
I think we've gone to a lot of trouble to save things that we didn't need to.
It's a significant building. We have saved, And to be honest, I don't think, an outsider standing here is in a position to make a judgment. And really, I don't give a shit about what they think.
Well, that's me told. But as Lee and Richard struggle on, they're suddenly given their biggest test yet. Not by schedule or budget, but rather an event so huge, not even remote corners of Cornwall can hide from the impact. Lee and Richard fell spontaneously in love with the 17th century mill in Cornwall. They had no experience of conservation or construction, and no real idea what their future held. All their hopes were bound up in a very personal vision of what some forgotten, broken building could become. Now, 2 years later, in the midst of chaos created by a pandemic, I've returned to Cornwall to see if they fashioned a home from the rubble, and if their blind optimism has been rewarded.
Well, birds singing, sun's even come out, and this building, well, it too is singing. Oh, it looks so good. It really does. A beautiful roof. Can't fault this. I can't fault the outside.
It's 17 months since the scandal. There is no doubt that this once ruinous relic has been given back its dignity, and with that, its status as a focal point for this small community.
A shining beacon. Everywhere you look, there's a little bit of history, a little bit of story, a little leftover, a remnant of its use. It's just so romantic and beautiful and magical now. I like the front door too. You see, it doesn't pretend to be old. It's just straightforward and simple. It's a really nice solution. Oh, I think they've done a brilliant job.
The reverence for history and the craftsmanship of this place tell of the bravery of the two souls who risked everything to try and save it.
Hello.
Hello, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin, how are you?
Great.
Well, I'm really well, thank you. How are you? More importantly, how are you both?
We're fine, aren't we?
Good.
Tired?
Tired?
Yeah, I bet you are. I'm sorry about the social distancing. We're now filming at 4 meters, which is kind of
It's crazy.
almost megaphone distance.
I can make myself heard.
Yeah, you can. You can, Lee. Do you know what? As can this building now. It is so strong and so well done and so... It's just so bursting with character now.
It's just a testament to the skill of...
The local craftsman.
That sinkhole didn't open up.
No,
Did it?
No.
Are you living in it?
Not quite. No, not quite. Just
Okay.
a few more days.
Still in the caravan, still in the shed.
Yes, yeah.
And how have you found lockdown? How have you found the isolation?
Yeah, it's been tough, hasn't it? There's been a lot of challenges.
We've had shortages of materials, that sort of stuff.
Now, when you started this project, you came armed with £250,000 and some hope. Quite a lot of that. You spent the 250k. Obviously, that went quite quickly. And the hope. I mean, that must have vanished pretty soon afterwards, didn't it?
No, never.
Never give up hope. I've always seen the building finished in my mind.
It was an old, derelict building. It needed a
New purpose.
It needed a future.
Needed a future.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe that we've given it a future. You know, you might be amazed at some of the things that are inside, but she's given us hope, hasn't she? And it'll be a happy, comfortable home.
Do you mind if I look at it by myself?
No.
Is that all right? I'm looking forward to this.
Okay.
Just want to say, because I don't know what it's like. Okay, sort of nice.
Inside, it's not so much a new chapter for the building as an entirely new story.
It's actually rather magnificent because it's not pretentious. It's lovely, it's just not fussy. Everything's really simple.
And in the dining room,
Look, Fred Flintstone tables.
reminders of the pain it's taken to achieve.
See how heavy and chunky they feel enormous. They're far more successful than I thought they'd be. What an amazing dining table. It's bonkers.
Like Sisyphus, Richard was condemned to a world of pain by these stones.
Oh, that floor, when I was taking it out, that 2 weeks I think turned into 2 months. But yeah, I'm so pleased with the millstones for the table, and it's nice to see them back in the mill. I'm quite looking forward to my first Sunday dinner, to be honest.
Boy, do I lament the passing of that old staircase. The staircase is beautifully made. It is elegant. It is very straightforward. It's very practical. So you can't fault it for that.
As replacements go, these stairs are the best possible solution. They wind through the floors, putting function back at the heart of this old building.
It's a really nice job.
I always thought it just might be a little dark and cramped. It's really, really surprising how light and airy and open it is.
Lee and Richard plastered most of the bent old walls themselves, and it gives the rooms an historic hand-wrought quality.
These guys have really pulled out the stops. You know, they have worked so hard, so determinedly, so doggedly. They have poured their heart and their souls into this place. They've considered every detail. And as a result, it feels considered. It feels like it's crafted. It feels as though, if anything, that the new components, the bits of architecture that have gone into the building, they feel that they are of the building. And that is a plus.
The snug is defined by a step down and by a few remnants of the mill's old timbers still in situ. And has this building ever felt as sophisticated or warm?
Love the fire.
I just think that is such a focal point, and I'm just waiting to sit down with a glass of wine in front of it.
The second floor has 2 guest bedrooms with a bathroom and atmospheric low ceilings. And another honest and crafted staircase to wind you up into the roof.
You see, this is my favourite bit of the building. Every bit of wood that's here, these are the sinews of the structure supporting the roof, doing a job.
This was going to be 2 enclosed bedrooms, but these repeated trusses look so good in one big space, which will be Lee and Richard's bedroom and bathroom. They've even jammed in a boudoir bath.
And now this window, which has the best view, looking down the valley. It's beautiful. This floor is the best floor. It's that simple.
Lee and Richard bought this building in a spur-of-the-moment decision. They rescued it, and I think it changed them.
When we first got to the mill, I think we realised that she didn't have much time left before it had been a pile of stones. Ever since I first saw it, I just knew it was us.
I hadn't fully appreciated my emotional attachment to it. I've never felt that about building before.
Lee and Richard came here in search of adventure. They wanted to triumph over risk and push themselves and learn. I wonder if they feel enriched or humbled by the experience.
So you two you've run businesses, you had a nursery, you met skydiving, you're used to thrills and you're used to taking risks. So how does this project then measure up?
I think it's up there at the top, isn't it? You know, skydiving competitions and records are fleeting, aren't they? But this has got a longevity about it.
£250,000, you said, was...
That was a ballpark, yeah 250.
What is the ballpark now?
295. There's a tiny little bit of stuff left to pay for, but we'll scrape the bottom of 300.
Yeah, I think that's great, actually. So do you consider yourselves local now?
No.
I think we've got to do another 20, 30 years before we'll never be local. At the beginning of the project, I didn't appreciate how important this building was to the locals. And now everybody's seen it decay and fall down, and everyone's fascinated by its resurrection.
You moved from the other end of the country to do this. You changed your lives to do this. You put everything you had into this one thing.
It is everything. It's taken every penny of resources and time and energy, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a beautiful home. We can stand back and say, look what we've done.
You seem both of you quite emotional about it.
Go on, you can answer that. Okay.
We just want to do right by her. Guarantee a future.
I've never cared about a building more than the mill. I think this is going to be home for a long time, and I'd do it in a heartbeat.
The heartbeat is again palpable in these ancient walls. For the first time in over half a century, visitors to this corner of Cornwall have something to marvel at. I marvel how this project has also changed both Richard and Lee. It's I would have done it, but I do not doubt their motivation to care for old places.
Well, Richard Lee and I certainly had our differences of opinion over this project. But I don't think it matters for two reasons. Firstly, this is a beautiful building on the outside, certainly. I mean, it stands here so magnificently and makes all kinds of new connections to the place and to the people and to the community. And secondly, our differences were always academic, philosophical. Whereas, of course, actually what connects people to place and to history is romance. And behind the romance lie a whole host of emotions. Love, care, joy, and, of course, optimism. And optimism is something that Richard Lee brought in spades to this project. In what are such difficult times now, we could all do with a bit more optimism, couldn't we?
Jaw-dropping extraordinary escapes away next Wednesday 9 p.m. in a new series with Sandy Toksvig starting in Suffolk and rack up eye-watering numbers for a tear-worthy light display. Shoes off next to bubble up with Channel 4 in Britain's most expensive home.
看直播吧，等会发。
进阀了，进阀了，兄弟们，我拉你们，我拉你们。
我进了。
对面内讧了，兄弟们，对面内讧了，对面上单看不起他们4个，维度哥，新一代的维度哥真的吵架了，4个人给他哄上单了，上单把他们卖毙了。
真的假的？
真的吗？
真的，4个人给他哄上单了，怪下路打了架，就怪第一把黄海杰了，把他一针就是杀穿了，就生气了，闭麦完的。
那不是我叶哥的问题啊！
他们闭麦完的，没说话了，已经晦气。
叶哥真不是个真人。
进啊，打完这位吧，我们打排位了。等一下兄弟们。
进阀了。
啊，
换一下东西。
再拉。
听我说，这把死针对上路，把对面上单心态搞不单，直接。
你直接把我上单。
来呀，拉你们了。
他们队伍对上单挺好的，那个先锋都放给上单吃的，还有个先锋只能放给上单吃呀。对啊，上单玩的挺舒服的，我跟你讲。你玩的不也很舒服吗，辉哥？我这把不舒服呀，感觉哥。
哎，上单这个位置，上单这个位置是不是出小丑啊？
不是，我这把一根红都没有吃，我打了30多分钟，我从一根红都没有吃，你不舒服，我才不舒服呀。我上路1级就半关血的，你上路1级半关，我上路1级，我从1级开始扫3主野，你不舒服。对啊，所以我们这把都不舒服呀，这把我炸了，你也炸了呀。
这不直接解散？不打了，解散。
他们咋了？他们刚才怎么了？这把不玩猴子了，我玩剑姬情感，我叫对面上单走的。
欢迎他上单心态分，有我辉哥的一半。
他对线打不穿，他对线没优势的，他对线因为好多波能越他的，所以我们不能这么打，没办法。 跟手里没关系了，我觉得。
我觉得跟手里有关系。
那么我觉得就是一级的问题。
他妈跟手里不是给他送了几个大人头啊？他拿那么多龙魂，我们说他多少个大人头啊？就给他们中野双 AP 啊，我觉得还是给他们中野双 AP 比较好一点。
可以。
把我把个情感打进
因为你要听我说啊，如果他们拿暴鲤、上路鳄鱼、下路日语，公又是个勇儿什么英雄的，我们很难打的。暴鲤鳄鱼我们上路玩不了，然后下路也是个暴鲤的这种的。我直接阿拉夫出的，阿拉夫出。不要出阿拉夫不要出了。
初中也是。要不我揪雷子算了，我揪雷子吧，我揪雷子。
啊，揪月子他们去打野，他们中单一要全班的，他们中单一要全班就好了。他们这下路闪金跟二旅肯定要老虎呀。
我觉得对面下路挺猛的，就是打不过。
中了出手旅的，手旅看着月子的，他也在跟你说。
我知道。
打球平均班的嘛，打野班。
把那个10个天绝班。
好了，队长。
你们这样子为什么心态猛烈啊？这个不是赢的吗？
他的意思是，他来 C 都别送，听他的，都管他的，就叫他们别送。
把剑击打把我把了，把剑击吧，把剑击吧，剑击吧，没有其他的打剑。
你先选，
你的先选剑击吧，我要选剑击吧，我怕选什么？他把我猴子扒了，把剑击扒了，把剑击扒了，
我先翻前决，
他扒猴子你就把剑击扒了，要不然很难受。
再翻个剑姬吧。
剑击。
我们上南辉那个呀，辉叫什么？不是辉月子吗？辉哥。
我玩瑞士吗？可以啊。我看过他的瑞士，我瑞士老他妈猛，我跟你讲，可以啊，真可以。
你什么不懂？你说。
涛哥你要玩什么？可以瑞士。
看一下。
我你别，他们后面看我忘记。
我上来看到了。
我知道什么？
月儿有头，
这把留头不好吗？月儿吧。
哇，谢谢小生的6架飞机啊！谢谢小生，谢谢生
我这把可以加。
生华的，谢谢生神的6架飞机啊！谢谢生神的6架时空战机，谢谢。
中差一些是吧？
谢谢生神的6个时空战机。
谁指挥的？二楼出二楼服呀。不是二楼出，不是二楼出，二楼服，我们是二楼，我跟你一起出。
我当时问了一句是不是出中野，然后我就直接出了。
没有，我没有说出，我说二老虎那种出。
我说的出中野。
我说的出中野。
对，我觉得你出中野，他们待会给你发完的。
我们有情感赢咖喱奥呀，这边分手咖喱要结束了呀。
对呀。
倒霉呀，看着我呀，
他也有看到，我也有。
倒霉还不看着情感赢。
我要抓虾，我要搬虾。